Okay, thank you. That is my PowerPoint presentation. I will try to stick to the time given. So I will go straight ahead. As already introduced, I am the current Executive Secretary of the Migrants Commission of the Catholic Bishops' Conference. And by the end of this month, I will be finishing my tenure and will be working again to a new mission in Australia by December 1st. So this is the topic given to me, the CBCP's pastoral care for asylum seekers and refugees. And the context of this ministry is basically, next slide, in 1995, the CBCP officially closed its engagement with the Indo-Chinese refugee crisis, the Vietnamese refugees, in the 1970s until the mid-90s, and then reopened 20 years later because of the Rohingya refugee crisis. So in 2015, we started to take up again the pastoral ministry and pastoral care for asylum seekers and refugees. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an excerpt of the official statement made by our commission during the Rohingya crisis, refugee crisis in 2015. I will just read through it, this section. This is not the whole thing, but basically it captures what it was all about. The boats bearing the Rohingyas, which were turned away by Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, have caught the attention of the international community unwanted in Myanmar, the country where they have been staying for a long time. Thousands of them, together with other migrants from Bangladesh, have embarked on a long and perilous journey, hoping to find succor in neighboring countries of Southeast Asia. Duped by traffickers who lured them with the promise of a better life, these poor people face international rejection. No country wants to accept them, also for fear of setting a precedent that will unleash further migration. To compound tragedy with irony, the Rohingyas are seeking acceptance in countries that either send migrants abroad or host millions of migrants in an irregular situation. Of course, we know that the Rohingyas did not arrive into the country. But anyhow, we proceeded with the ministry with the refugees and asylum seekers. Next slide, please. And our ministry to the pastoral care for refugees and asylum seekers is made possible through partnership with different religious congregations, church institutions, and lay ecclesial movements, specifically and in particular, the Daughters of Charity, the Scalabrian Missionaries, Congregation of the Missions, Franciscan Missionaries of Mary, Order of Friars Minor, De La Salle Brothers, St. Paul of Chartres, Daughters of Mary of Liuca, Couples for Christ, Global Inc., different dioceses in the National Capital Region, Manila, Cubao, Pasig, and Parañaque. And of course, we also get support from the Office of to the Aid to the Church in Need and the Rebisco Foundation. Next slide, please. And we have a program called Adopt a Refugee Program, and it covers the following services. 1, food and shelter. 2, legal services and documentation assistance. 3, education from elementary to tertiary levels. 4, health services. 5, employment and livelihood. 6, counseling. 7, tutorials, and 8 language and culture training. So there is basically no time limit for these services. They are given until they are necessary, and we assess the recipients until they reach self reliance, sufficiency, and possibly uh, integration into the wider community. Next slide, please. And there are 3 institutions that are in close coordination with the CBCP: the Daughters of Charity, the Scalabrian Missionaries, and the Couples for Christ Global Foundation, Inc. They fully implement all the core services of the pastoral care for refugees. So this means that they have adopted refugees either as individuals or as families, and they provide the 8 core services that are envisioned by CBCP. So from providing accommodation without limit, and then giving education, assisting with food, with health needs, and as far as providing livelihood and employment and the other services mentioned beforehand. Next slide, please. I have written here the Catholic institutions and foundations that have provided education services to the children of refugees. We basically, in general, take care of families, not individuals. Very few individuals, but refugees who come to the country as families, usually a composition of 4 members or 5 or 6. No? So I have enumerated here around 10 institutions, Catholic institutions and foundations. Number 1, the Congregation of the Missions, the Vincentian Fathers. They provided full scholarship. 1 refugee has already graduated B Psychology from Adamson. Then the Daughters of Charity has produced a graduate via Concordia College, a full scholarship on B Social Work. And then St. Paul of Chartres, they also provided scholarship, tourism management, but the student did not finish. 4th, La Salle Green Hills, 1 full scholarship given to a refugee for years grades 11 to 12. And the next, number 5, next slide, please. Paco Catholic School, Archdiocese of Manila, 1 full scholarship to a refugee who finished grade 10. And then we have Mother Maria Magdalena Starace School, Inc., 3 full scholarships to refugee children from grade 1 until grade 10. Right now, we are working on the possibility of extending this scholarship until grade 12. Then we have Santa Isabel College, 3 full scholarships, elementary level, means the refugee children studied from grade 1 and will be scholars until they finish grade 10. And number 7, Academia de Belarmino, Tandansora. This is a scholarship provided by the members of Couples for Christ Global Foundation, 2 full scholarships, elementary level. And then the next slide, please. The Daughters of Mary of Luca, 1 full scholarship, kindergarten. And then number 9, Father Michael Donoher Memorial School in Silang, Cavite, 2 full scholarships, elementary level. And then number 10, Ribisco Foundation, one full scholarship, 4-year course, BS Mechanical Engineering in at Adamson University. Next slide, please. So who are the asylum seekers and refugees assisted through the CBCP's pastoral care for refugees? There are 8 Pakistani families. 7 families are recognized, and 1 family has been repeatedly denied refugee recognition, so their status is still pending at this until this moment. 4 Eritreans, 3 Iranians, 1 Turkish, 5 Ethiopian, 1 Ethiopian, and the total number of persons 45. 8 are asylum seekers, and the rest are all recognized refugees by the Department of Justice. Next slide, please. One of the success stories that we can talk about is the case of Kamran Danish. He finished his BE Social Work at Concordia College, and then by April next year, he will finish his master's degree on social work at the Asian Social Institute. He now works as a social worker, as Project Development Officer 2 under the Pantawid Pamilya at the DSW office in Ligarda Street, Quiapo, Manila. So this is the first time ever that a foreigner has been granted access to employment in a government agency. Next slide, please. We have also the case of Arslan Tabish. He's the younger brother of Kamran Danish. He finished his B Psychology degree at Adamson University. Then just this September, he succeeded in securing a partial scholarship in the UK, University of South Wales, master's degree on clinical psychology. This is a good precedence for other refugees in terms of their future possibilities. So we can consider this one of the most successful stories of a refugee in the Philippines who was able to live for the United Kingdom using a travel document issued by the Department of Foreign Affairs. And as a conclusion, the CBCP's holistic approach of providing pastoral care and its vision of refugees reaching self-reliance and full integration into the wider community is already happening. We continue to encourage others to help in their own little ways through monetary assistance, as volunteer tutors, especially in languages, English and Filipino, and possibly mathematics and science subjects. And then we also encourage you to adopt either one refugee or adopt a refugee family as a community, as a congregation, or as an institution. Then there's also the possibility of sponsoring a scholar. We see the importance of access to education for their future possibilities, and also employ a refugee. We do have refugees working in call centers, as caregivers, as nurses in Catholic institutions. And then second to the last, be an advocate for refugees. And finally, your prayers for the well-being of all asylum seekers and refugees. With that, my presentation concludes. Thank you for listening.